of economic recovery that arises with new challenges and the potential of expanding the space of opportunities for entrepreneurships in the Sika region. For me, it's a privilege and an honor to count with the presence of Mrs. Lucy Jilka of the Policy Planning and Coordination of the Bureau of the Western Hemisphere, the Department of State of the United States, where definitely for us, the Department of State has been a key partner in the development of the MSME in the region for many years, and the support of the model of attention to MSME, which currently is a public good, which is the most updated. We are promoting with this the adaptation of the MSME through the taking advantage of it. United States is definitely a worldwide referent for entrepreneurship, so it's not just by chance that you accompany me. It's a pleasure to have you here of the Office of Policy Planning and to have the presence of Mrs. Lucy Jilka, the Director of Policy Planning and Coordination of the Bureau of Western Hemisphere and the United States Department of State. The United States is a key partner in the region for many years, supporting the model of attention, which is now a regional public good. United States, it's a world benchmark and referent. So it's no coincidence that they can join us. Mrs. Jilka, thank you so much. It's yours.
Thank you so much, David. Good afternoon. My name is Lucy Jilka. I am, as David said, the Deputy Director in the Bureau for Western Hemisphere Affairs.
And with Lucy's words, I precisely want to give way to the moderator of today's panel, Maria Denise Duarte, who's the director, regional director of Agora Partnerships, that has extreme experience in attention to entrepreneurs of the region. So Maria Denise, all of yours is space and the leadership of the panel. A lot of success. Thank you, David. Thank you, Lucy, for your introduction. It's a pleasure to share with you and with some incredible experts that are going to help us with their experience, lessons learned. As David said, I'm a member of Agora Partnerships, which is an association that supports entrepreneurship so that more companies can help us economically and also in our social and environmental impact. And as I said before, today's panel called Entrepreneurship as a Motor of Economic Improvement are with experts of the region that together will create a profile of the role that entrepreneurship must execute to promote economic reactivation in Central America in a context that, as David mentioned, has been complex, challenging, and not only affects Central America, but the whole world. At this time, we have the presence of an expert that comes from a development and innovation agency in Colombia. We have a representative of an organization that promotes innovation and a leader of organizations that holds a lot of organizations that promote entrepreneurship in our region. We are going to follow a rather simple format. Each one of our panel members, as I said later, will have the opportunity to respond to questions, some in presentation format, and later, as you know, you will have the opportunity to share your questions with other panel members. This is why we invite you to share through the option of questions and answers on the platform any doubt, questions that will be responded at the end of this presentation. So now I will start by sharing the profile of the experts that I was referring to. We start with our first expert, Ana Maria Quiroz, Director of MILAB de Impulsa Colombia. Ana Maria is a graphic communicator, postgraduate in marketing, innovation, entrepreneurship, and business management from Barcelona, and currently she works in MILAB de Impulsa in Colombia and Latin America, Impulsa Colombia, the development agency and entrepreneurship and innovation of the Republic of Colombia. Ana Maria has chaired citizen mobilization, mentality, and entrepreneurship culture and public innovation. And she has innovation and cooperation. Welcome, Ana Maria. Thank you so much, Maria Denise, and everybody who accompanies today. It's a pleasure to accompany you, and as always, willing to continue to learn along the way with all of you. And of course, to socialize our learnings in this work and collaboration with entrepreneurs and MIPYMEs, MSME, and I will introduce the other panel members, and then we shall go with the question and answer part. The next presenter is Barbara Silva, and President of Global Impact Chile. She is in digital CEO innovation consulting, which purpose is to prepare people and organizations in economy of digital innovation, and president of Herbal Global Impact that prepares the female talent and in Latin America in 2016. She has been recognized internationally as an innovative woman in the Pacific area and leading women in development. She is president of Cartier Women's Initiative Board and was the first woman to participate in the G8 summit in London, was a Chilean to study in the university in Silicon Valley. She comes with 2 masters in psychology and innovation. And welcome Barbara to this panel. Thank you very much, Denise. And thank you, Barbara. And our third panel member is Monica Dubois, Regional Manager of the Central American Chapter and the Mexico for Central America and Mexico Veranda. Monica leads the ANDA work in Central America, Mexico, a network of associations that promote small businesses in development economy. She has a master's in sustainable development and corporate social responsibility studied in the Industrial University in Madrid, Spain. And Monica has ample experience in the social performance in the region. So we shall start with the presentations and the response to our question. We start with Ana Maria. We spoke in this time, Ana Maria, you're accompanying us not only representing Impulsa Colombia, but also representing Colombia, which is a country that is referent for us in innovation and entrepreneurship in a country, in a context that we live in. They had passed a law on entrepreneurship and to give growth to these new companies. Ana Maria, how do you think that the SICA region can take advantage of new scenarios for entrepreneurship in the context of a economic recovery, resilient, inclusive, and sustainable? Well, it is important to, before centering on the 3 points that you have listed for today, and remembering and talking about that in our countries, the entrepreneurship and MSME, especially the micro and small enterprise, make up the majority of the business network, and besides are important generators of employment. Nearly 85 to 95% of the business network in Central America is made up by MSME, and in Colombia, and now with my representation and according to the report that we presented, the majority of the potential members, approximately 58%, and people with the intention of learning of 50% approximately. In comparison with the average of the rest of countries, the Latin American, our country as second place after Chile. And however, all of this problem caused by the pandemic and doesn't have any precedents that are compared recently has generated a great interest in the entrepreneurship for the MSME and making reference to all the concepts that you just mentioned, let's say resilience, inclusion. Personally and institutionally, I am, and we are convinced that there are no more resilient, inclusive people than the entrepreneurs. They already carry it in their DNA, and we could have a small list to make a double check. And they're flexible, check they have it, and they manage uncertainty. They have empathy with the user, check, and open to change, and their collaborators, check. And so I love to close that list with a capacity that I admire that they have, the capacity to generate value, but not only that value, that in numbers and the capacity to generate value, shared value. So your question is, what does the series of capacities or scenarios could be taken advantage of? I always like to talk around the question that the entities in support of entrepreneurship, not to reduce it to just a simple actor like the government. So we must emphasize in 3 aspects that directly in Colombia have favored. The first one is when I want to talk about the 3 points, the first one is a positive result of the pandemic, of course, is the acceleration of digital transformation in the companies and also in the government, the presence, entrepreneurship, online presence increased during the crisis. The entrepreneurship websites grew approximately 88%, and also in Chile and Brazil. There is a very important data on this, that the platforms of e-commerce, logistics, and financial services are the sectors that have produced the most of amount of information in Latin America, Colombia, which is Andy, and we talk about them. The companies in our countries have the digital transformation, which presents a very important progress in comparison to figures of 3-4 years ago, where the percentage barely reached 25%. In view of the entrepreneurs and business people and MSME, what more than to understand what is that about digital transformation? They made a real migration with the support entity of the ecosystem. We need to have the capacity to help us to promote productivity, growth, digital growth force in all of its processes and the development of new business models through three aspects that are also important. The generation of capacities and the presentation of a model, a service of personalized service to the entrepreneurs and the MSME that allows them to have systematized monitoring indicators and accompaniment. Third, the interpretation of solutions, first level solutions without additional cost for the companies that so require it. And I close these three with a point that consists in the offer of solutions. It should be able to be parameterized in all of the areas. This is what I've just mentioned. We see it from Colombia that we call digital transformation centers. We lead them directly from Impulsa and with the main chambers of commerce and some associations of the country. These centers were thought to resolve the series of barriers that were detected at all the levels. First, the lack of knowledge on technology, the lack of accompanied by the companies during after the implementation of these solutions and the high cost of these solutions. And lastly, the lack of alignment between demand and supply of the companies. In all, we have 16 digital transformation centers in operation throughout the country, and we hope that in the short term we can put into operation 24 and into implementation phases that have nearly 20,000 businesses and 6,000 have been transformed quite deeply, and we want to continue to advance and using that need within the framework of the situation and the opportunity. So there's always like a bad, a not so good side so that the demand of the entrepreneurship and the MSME can reach more access, but particularly education, specifically in countries like ours with different socially and geographically. This need still persists. The second point that I had prioritized for the question in this panel consists in the scenario that I would like to mention regarding the public policies, and this also connects with the law of entrepreneurship, the pandemic, and the adverse effect that it has had for all of the entrepreneurs presents as an extraordinary case where governments, regulating entities, and we must take measures to alleviate problems and improve on the businesses in our country. We built and approved the competent economic reactivation. What's more important, we approved an entrepreneurship law according to the needs of those entrepreneurs and the MSMEs. With the government and the ecosystem institution, we see the need to update the regulatory framework and current and create alleviation for those entrepreneurs. Our entrepreneurship law, as I said, was recently approved, moves in 5 different axes that were prioritized. First, differentiate tariffs and procedures. This can be done from a discount of the Directorate of Medicines, where they see the procedures of medicines, and departmental discounts have registered the put into operation of at least 3 sandbox that allow the government as a whole, together with the entrepreneurs and MSMEs, to see the experimentation scenarios, and lastly, an accounting scenario. The second axis moves on a topic that is I love, which is of single acquisition, which is a tool with an incredible potential. But from my opinion, very few have been able to take ownership on this to make their social businesses for the MSME grow. And so we see access to minimum amount purchases, differential criteria that allow the entry of the MSME, and lastly, the promotion of public acquisition of technology and innovation. The third in our law of entrepreneurship consists in one of the aspects that is more valued by the MSME, that is obviously the aspect of this, and they have a modification of the National Fund of Guarantee in our country. And so to speak, it makes it possible to have an entry for the entrepreneurships for these MSME. And lastly, there is the enabling of these boxes to see the resources. A fourth access, which is institutional through a program that we have originated ARCO, and we have worked in identifying the government programs that could have certain similarity along the way. They could be coordinated to generate greater efficiency in public spending and expenses and the funds. The fifth axis we have prioritized, and it's the capacity building for entrepreneurship. Thank you very much, Ana Maria. I know that the truth is, as we mentioned earlier, there's so much to learn about the experience from Colombia, and I think this helps to awake our interest and to take ownership of the changes that need to happen and that facilitate that this could be like the reactivation amidst this context. And there, I like your message of how everything goes around the need of the entrepreneurship to facilitate them in the market, from public policy, support of entrepreneurial centers, and digital transformation, which is so important. And brings me to our second panel member and expert, Barbara. In this case, we know that you have broad experience talking about innovation and digital transformation that have been so relevant and that Ana Maria also mentioned several times. And you have been exposed to different innovation ecosystems, the most developed in the world. Which do you consider the necessary competencies that the entrepreneurs need to develop to promote entrepreneurship, dynamic entrepreneurship in the Sika region? Thank you so much, Denise, for the invitation, for the question. This has been a presentation to put into context the response that I will share. And I'm going to share my screen at this time. And my focus is amidst a conflict. The Sika region had the terms of bureaucracy, security, infrastructure, access to financing, political instability, and so the taxes, inflation, and training of the job, the labor force, and it starts in a context of the pandemic that came to shake up our way of life and the way that we were working with our family members, our public spaces, and the way that we see the day-to-day work to currently we are seeing interruption in all of the industries. All of the organizations are rethinking the way they do things, to thinking about technological innovations that had never had a precedent in the history of humanity. They're making changes in the way of thinking and the mentality of the businesses and persons, which has been accelerated because of the pandemic. And we're also see the emergency of new business models and the industries and businesses that are being transformed and are demanding new skills, new competencies in the entrepreneurship talent. And we're seeing that the functions and roles of people and businesses are evolving. The digital transformation is an obligation. It's not an option. There's a series of entrepreneurship of high impact that are being done from Latin America towards the world with local and global impact. Education, financial education, and payment systems, and it adds and continues. We understand by dynamic entrepreneurship. Dynamic entrepreneurship talks about a composition of entrepreneurs that are identifying needs in the market with a regional or global impact. In their first year, they sent more than $100,000. They have a sustained annual growth of 35% and have potential of becoming into a medium enterprise in a short period of time, and also have a high differentiating component. In Latin America, dynamic entrepreneurship represents between 60 to 70% of the new jobs. And one can see dynamic entrepreneurship. This is the answer. Nowadays, we're seeing the emergency of high impact companies in Chile. We have extremely important business that have caused impact. They have a millionaire investment, and these are investments, and this has been part of the consequence of the development of entrepreneurship ecosystem for more than 15 years that they have developed it, and it's here. And seeing the entrepreneurship that come from different parts of the world, and they come to see the ecosystem in Chile and Brazil, Colombia, United States, and other countries that show the example of Chile to accelerate the high impact entrepreneurships. However, nowadays, we are in a situation that we're obliged to change the way of doing things, and particularly, I want to make emphasis on women. Now we have the great opportunity to be part of the dynamic entrepreneurship of the region with a global impact. Pandemic is a revolution, came to revolutionize everything that we knew. We're seeing in real time how the industries and the professions have had to change the way of doing things. The women have seen the need to develop new skills, to see new professional challenges to expand her knowledge, and in order to be able to evolve and manage their career in this area of uncertainty, which wasn't even thought of. Where would you like to be in the next 3 or 4 years? This is a key question that we hope to be able to resolve. The pandemic cannot be paralyzed. On the contrary, it should be mobilized to see the different things, to make the changes and the freedom to reinvent and evolution. The barriers are not mental. They're not even in our mind. As I say, the barriers are not geographic. They are in our mind. And this is one of the main competencies.
A movement that is global movement and that integrates the feminine challenge in the digital era. So women can work, can have a job, can become leaders, and can create companies on 21st century. This is the methodology to accelerate and expedite the entrepreneurship led by women. And this is done through our methodology that is e-learning. And speed learning is a methodology that it's a new learning technique. In 3 months, the talents can get the tools and where you can connect your idea at an international level, leveraged by our partnerships. And this can become a high impact business. So we want to transform at a digital level. And now we are a click away from the markets. And remember that the markets are global. Networking is global. And now we have an amazing opportunity, and it's very important to manage the contacts that you have. If you have 5 contacts, now it's very important to be able to generate value through the net. We have realized that entrepreneurship not always has to do with economics or with the technical capacities, but with the sensation of entrepreneurs. They don't feel empowered enough to take decisions. And with this learning program, we can show them how to fail, how to not fear failure, because this is just an experience. And you can expedite and you can change the way that you're doing things, and you can create added values. This is practical and is innovation. Automation and learning, it's key to accelerate and dynamize entrepreneurship. And at the same time, everything is virtual. This is collective, and this is in the network. We have seen that from different ecosystems in Chile, in Colombia, this is fundamental nowadays to be able to expedite learnings. And learnings should be expedited. And why? Because from the standpoint of the abilities of our entrepreneurs, it's the conductual, cognitive, and self-confidence. It's very necessary. Women, for instance, need to trust themselves at a professional level as entrepreneurs. When you're 50 years old and you want to sell, you have to be tolerant, and you have to know how to solve difficult problems. You have to stop fearing failure. In the second module, we have a set of tools such as leadership for the 21st century, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and many other tools that nowadays can amplify the human capacity to dynamize these entrepreneurs. And from this standpoint, it's also relevant to know how to do things faster and at a more cost-effective way. This is the truth. We need to validate the opportunities of the market. If we don't have a market, we don't have a business. And this is something that we need to convey. This is the message that we need to convey to women. We need to start thinking about business with an impact on our environment. So we need to have these collaboration networks. We leverage through mobile apps, collaboration learning. So therefore, nowadays, what we want is that women feel empowered. They can learn, they can reflect, and they can learn how to network. And the abilities that nowadays we must develop, one of them is self-management of our learning. We need to forget our comfort zone. We need to stand away from our comfort zone. We need to be humble. We need to learn from success stories, but also from failure, because this mentality is something that it's throughout the world. This is throughout Latin America nowadays, and we need to help men and women. We must try. Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. As you mentioned, I believe that it's extremely important that we need to mobilize and not paralyzed. This is very necessary for the reactivation of these entrepreneurs. Monica, I'll give you the floor. And from your perspective, your organization is helping other organizations supporting ecosystems, how is this important and can be stronger for the economical reactivation of the region? We're having a problem with the audio. So I'm going to share my screen now. Thank you, Maria Denise, for the introduction. As I said, I'm going to share my screen and I want to talk about the perspective of the ecosystem. So I want to share some data to answer some of the questions that have emerged about the ecosystems for entrepreneurs and how they can contribute to economical recovery. Briefly, I'll take a few minutes to talk about ANDE so you can understand quite a bit. This is a global network of different bodies. We have different members. We have more than 280 members, and we have fundamental services such as education, developing capacities, etc. This is for small companies that are on the path of growth. And we work on development, and we work with these companies because we believe that they are the ones that can generate jobs and stimulate and promote economical growth at a long term and have a friendly impact with the environment and others. We work with more than 150 countries, and we have impacted more than 200,000 companies. This is the geography, more or less, of how we work at a global level. So with this, I would like to share the evolution that we have seen of the ecosystem and why my final recommendations. So we can have an idea. This is biased, of course, with the work of ANDE, but just to have an idea, in 2015 and 2016, ANDE published what used to be the first maps of ecosystem of entrepreneurs, at least in these 3 countries. We did it for other countries, but more or less what we find was a universe of 28, 33 companies, the most, that were giving services to the entrepreneurs in these specific countries many years afterwards. And why we believe this is a permanent need is that we updated the maps in a different project and with focus on rural entrepreneurships. For 2021, we published again for these 3 countries, and just talking about the organizations that are supporting at a rural level. In El Salvador, we found 104 organizations, in Guatemala 117, and in Honduras 107. So this speaks about the evolution that we have had in the last 6 years of the ecosystems on 3 countries of the region. And I believe that is important to say that this is the pathway of so many other countries. Evidently, this is not only having to do with the volume of organizations, but the quality of work and what we're seeing on these ecosystems. So we also wanted to share this important data, the one that we have on screen, and the average of 83% of organizations of our total sample are located locally. Obviously, this can vary. We have organizations at our right. We see that we have a greater number of capacity developers, but we do have organizations of donors represented on the center. This is represented mainly by international organizations. And it was amazing to find out when we check the maps of at a global level, where more than 50% are local, we can see that there's a lot of interest and a lot of activity going on from the local organizations in Central America. And the truth is that we believe that this is a very good news that we can promote from a scope of upside down of entrepreneurship on the Northern Triangle. So I believe that this is the reality, as I said, of other SICA member countries. So with this, another data that I wanted to share through the investigation of these maps, we also asked some of the barriers of the intermediary organizations. And it's very curious because we still have this feeling, it is a feeling of not being interconnected as organizations and lack of collaboration. According to the development of the organizations throughout the countries, it can change, but this is something that is present in all of the countries. And in a recent collaboration with the project Transforming Market Systems of USAID, Aniboca, and La Una University in Honduras, they complemented the map with a social network analysis. And I would like you to present this is a particular case of Honduras, where the media of the organizations collaborated with another 6 organizations of the ecosystem. This gives us a point of the global density point of 5%. This means that we are only taking benefit of 5% of the total connections possible between organizations or among organizations. And this is, again, just the case of Honduras. What will happen if we can benefit from all the connections that we have in the SICA region? Something very interesting that I believe that is good news is that companies evaluated the quality of the network, where they say that 72% are significant collaborations. This means that although we do have connections that are working as an ecosystem, we are not making the most of the whole potential that we have as a network to be able to straighten the interconnections and benefit from the strengths and the knowledge of different organizations. Some of the actions, and I'm going to speak about economical recovery as such. And part of the study was to see what actions were being taken and what are the actions that we are going to take at a long term to make sure of this economical recovery. Of course, with everything that is happening with the pandemic, 3 bullets that are the most significant. I believe that for today, many of the companies have adjusted the programs or the content or the format or the channel for the content. This is the very good news. I believe that my colleagues have present about this, about the importance of adjustment on this new reality and how we can support at a more personal level for the situation of the entrepreneurs. And on the other hand, something that I consider as well very good is that many organizations are planning to develop new coordinations. What I like to think is that Latin America in particular, this is also true for other regions of the world, but we have many crises. If it's not political, it's economical. This is about natural disasters. Now it's the pandemic and we share it, of course, but I believe that this speaks very well about the reaction of the entrepreneur ecosystem to be able to understand again the needs of the users and how to take care of the MSMEs. And as part of this trend, what are we seeing from Andy, the reaction of the ecosystems that are more mature? I have 2 examples here. We have a training and capacity building of the ones that are more specialized. we have the platform of economical impact at a central maker level. This has been an ongoing platform for the last 2 years, and the main objective is to collect data about impact investment. I have some of the objectives that are key, such as identifying the actors, raising awareness about the investment and impact, and strengthening the capacities of the financial part. This is also part of the job of we're doing on Ande, but this is also important for Ande, Guatemala Entrepreneurship and Development Innovation Initiative, with the help of USAID and more than 13 companies on the private sector. And main objectives are to strengthen intermediary organizations, promote the investment on the region, and to have a more robust and strong ecosystem. So the main message, I believe, is that specialization becomes very important, and we believe that these initiatives are the ones that will strengthen a country, a sector, the impact investment, and we can collaborate at a more significant level on an economical recovery. 5 quick bullets that make me think when I was working on my presentation as recommendations. One is definitely to work on interconnection. We need to have more interconnection on the ecosystem. The case that I just explained about Honduras, this is key, and there's a lot of potential that we are not benefiting from. And if we connect the organizations and we can have more collaboration, the ecosystems on the Zika region will be straightened. To promote peer learning. This comes from the Ande experience on working with people that can understand each other. And this can be on topics throughout organizations such as donors and corporations, investors. We can promote these dialogues among peers. Third, to promote the complementation of the projects. This means, as number 4, multi-year projects. This is a message more for donors, I think, to be able to rethink the ways on how we donate or provide capital to the region for multi-year projects. So we can complement one project with the other one at a medium term, and we can see the impact. And finally, to wrap up the presentation, is to generate evidence. Ande is very rigorous on evidence and research. We believe that this is what we need on the ecosystem. This is the only way to prove that it's important to invest on the region, that we have many companies with a lot of potential of growth, many entrepreneurs that not only for the donors, but to promote among the politicians better public policies or to simplify the work of SMEs. Thank you, Maria Denise. I'll give you the floor. Thank you, Monica. I don't know if we have space for Q&A, but I don't think that we have more time. I believe that we have talked about the perspective of the government, perspective of a company that is providing support directly to promote the impact through women program, and your own perspective, Monica, from perspective of changes on the ecosystem. So to wrap up, I would like to give you 1 minute so you can give us a message as closing remarks for the audience. And if you have questions, we can write them on the chat, and we can, as a Promipe, channel them to the different panelists. But I would like to give you a minute for our audience. taking into account the economical reactivation, of course. Ana Maria? Yes, listening to my panel colleagues, I would like to highlight the need of promoting ecosystems that are more coordinated and connected, to promote investment of high impact on the companies that are working on innovation development, and to coordinate the portfolio of value. And a third thing that Alba mentioned is to work on the incidence and the culture of entrepreneurs on a region, so we can activate not only a conversation that is inspiring, but the closest gaps of learning and perception. So this whole exercise is easiest for them. Thank you, Ana Maria. Barbara? Well, I would like to highlight the importance on developing a vision, a single vision. And as entrepreneur, this is something that you don't think of. How long are you going to go? How big you can think? And to develop the vision, if you don't have the knowledge, you need to have a network, and you have to have a lot of conversations throughout the world. Nowadays, the pandemic is not limiting the connection that we have. We have more than 15 countries connected here in a digital platform today: Panama, Colombia, Costa Rica, the whole SICA region on this conversation in this amazing platform to generate insights. And nowadays, this knowledge is democratic and accessible. And if we develop the vision at a long term to impact different stages, of course, because what happened is that entrepreneurs have this anxiety of a short term, but you need to think big and you need to implement every stage. This is my message. Monica? Thank you. I think that my last reflection is to think as an ecosystem. We go back to the original definition from the science. It has to do with the existence of a community that is interconnected, but not only interconnected as people, organizations, but the context, what is going on, or our environment. And I think that's a lot to develop on that regard, but we need to think more holistic and systemic, and it will be easiest to build these ecosystems. And I completely agree with Barbara on the vision. Thank you. Thank you for your participation. And I like what you said, that we are a click away to continue this conversation and these collaboration opportunities. Thank you, David. Thank you, Maria Denise. Thank you, Ana Maria, Barbara, and Monica. I think that we're going to have a second part for this panel, because many things are still important to discuss. And I think that we have a great input for the next step. And what we have to do now, that is to work on the dialogue clusters on concrete proposals that can support the new initiatives of the region. The thinking of this ecosystem, this collaboration that we need, it's also something that we wanted to convey in the forum. We have more than 100 people working on this initiative. Nowadays, they will be in different rooms and different clusters, and they will be working on these concrete proposals for the region. So thank you for the commitment, for being so direct, for being so incisive on the proposals that we need on the region. And we will see you soon. Ignacio, I don't know if you can give us a few instructions for the working tables, or are we gonna start, Felix? Well, thank you, and see you the next time.
¿Terminaste antes que yo aquí?